Imagine a world where Michael Jackson never left us. No tragic overdose, no mysterious circumstances, just the king of pop aging into the legend he was always meant to be. At 65, Michael Jackson wouldn't just be a global icon, he would be the blueprint for how to grow older in the music industry while remaining untouchable. First, let's talk about his career. If there's one thing MJ mastered better than anyone, it was evolution. From the Motown years to Thriller, Bad, and beyond, the man knew how to reinvent himself. So at 65, we wouldn't be watching an artist stuck in the past, we'd be witnessing a living timeline of music innovation. Instead of trying to keep up with trends, he would shape them. You can bet he'd already have several Grammy-winning albums in the 2010s and 2020s. Maybe a conceptual album exploring social justice. Maybe an unexpected collaboration with Billie Eilish or Kendrick Lamar. He'd likely dip into Afrobeats, lo-fi R&B, or even a stripped-back unplugged series, proving he didn't need spectacle to move people, just his voice and his message. But don't get it twisted, the visuals would still be next level. MJ wasn't just a singer, he was a performance visionary. While his intense dance routines might have mellowed with age, let's be honest, nobody's doing the moonwalk at 65 without a chiropractor on speed dial. His presence would remain electrifying. Think high-end residencies in London, Vegas, or Dubai, with immersive digital experiences, AR-enhanced stage effects, and storytelling that blends past and present. You wouldn't just attend a concert, you'd be entering the Michael Jackson universe. Meanwhile, the public image would have shifted. No more paparazzi chaos. No more courtrooms. At 65, the media narrative would be different. Michael the cultural elder. Michael the mentor. Michael the survivor of a system that tried to destroy him. He'd finally have the respect he was always owed, featured in documentaries, not as a controversy magnet, but as a genius whose artistry and philanthropy transcended generations. And most importantly, he'd be mentoring the next wave of talent. Imagine MJ quietly signing artists behind the scenes, giving notes on music videos, offering advice about the industry. You think Beyoncé is protective of her legacy? MJ would be curating his own musical dynasty. We'd see him seated front row at the Grammys, giving standing ovations to the artists he inspired, maybe even presenting awards to protégés who grew up idolizing. That's him. And this is just scratching the surface. While Michael Jackson's artistry would still captivate the world at 65, his personal evolution would be just as fascinating. For decades, the media painted him as a reclusive enigma, obsessing over his appearance and personal life instead of focusing on his genius. But had he lived, that narrative might have shifted dramatically. In fact, we might have seen a whole new Mike alone at peace with himself, no longer haunted by the intense spotlight or dogged by controversy. By now, MJ would likely have spoken his truth in a full-length, no-holds-barred autobiography or documentary, not another sensationalized piece crafted by outsiders, but something intimate and personal. It would detail his childhood trauma, his battles with the media, and his health issues, all of it finally under his control. Oprah might have interviewed him again, this time with no ulterior motives. Maybe he'd have his own Netflix docuseries or a podcast where he reflected on fame, art, and fatherhood with surprising humility. And fatherhood would be central. Michael was always a doting father to Prince, Paris, and Blanket. Imagine him now, proudly watching them grow into their own, supporting their careers, protecting them from the harshness he knew too well. He'd be the cool, slightly overprotective dad cheering from the sidelines, maybe even walking Paris down the red carpet, or collaborating with Prince on a multimedia project. His children wouldn't just carry his name, they'd carry his message. And MJ would be there to guide them every step of the way. MJ at 65 would also be a man more grounded in his values. His long-standing passion for humanitarian work would likely have evolved into full-blown global activism. He always cared deeply about children, world peace, and healing the planet. So it's not a stretch to imagine him partnering with the UN, starting foundations, or creating music-driven social campaigns. Think, "We are the world," on a global ongoing scale. Of course, his image would still be a topic of conversation. He might finally speak out about his skin condition, vitiligo, in a way that shuts down rumors forever. Maybe he'd appear in public more often. No surgical masks, no mystery, just Michael. Older, wiser, and finally free from the need to defend himself. Perhaps he'd embrace a natural look, or maybe he'd continue experimenting with his fashion, aging like the icon he always was. He wouldn't be chasing youth. He'd be redefining what aging with style and grace looks like in pop culture. Critics who once tore him down would likely be writing think pieces about how ahead of his time he was. Former rivals and peers might publicly express their respect, and his influence would be discussed not in the context of nostalgia, but legacy. At 65, MJ wouldn't be a relic of a bygone era. He'd be the timeless blueprint that others still aspire to emulate. If Michael Jackson were alive at 65, we wouldn't just be celebrating his past. We'd be witnessing a full-blown renaissance. The king of pop was never one to stay. Statish was always reinventing himself. From the Motown child prodigy to the electrifying solo artist who dominated the 80s and 90s, MJ knew how to evolve. And had he lived, the 2020s would have been no different. The difference is, this time, he'd be doing it with complete control. For starters, imagine the collaborations. MJ was already a bridge between generations, working with artists like Akon, Kanye West, and Justin Timberlake in his later years. At 65, the features would have been massive. Think Beyoncé, The Weeknd, Bruno Mars, Billie Eilish, or even Kendrick Lamar. Younger artists revere him, not just as a legend, but as the foundation of modern pop and performance. MJ wouldn't be chasing trends, she'd be setting them again. A new album would likely fuse classic MJ grooves with modern sounds, Afro beats, trap, electronic soul, crafted with the same perfectionism he was famous for. Then there's touring. Yes, age might have slowed his moonwalk, but his imagination? Never. The This Is It tour was already being billed as one of the most ambitious concert experiences ever created. At 65, MJ could have gone even further. VR experiences, holographic storytelling, global live streams. Picture a residency in Las Vegas, not unlike what Adele or Usher are doing, but infused with immersive visuals, full orchestras, and messages of unity. The demand would be so massive, they'd have to build a venue just for him. Let's not forget the business side. Jackson was more than a performer, he was a savvy businessman. Owning the Beatles' catalog was only one example of his foresight. By 65, MJ could have owned a multimedia empire, his own streaming platform, record label, fashion line, and perhaps even a philanthropic tech startup. He'd likely be mentoring young artists, giving them the guidance he never got, and redefining the industry model entirely. Critically, his artistry would have taken on new depth. He always wanted his music to change the world. Now, with age and perspective, his lyrics might lean more introspective, philosophical, even spiritual. Songs about legacy, healing, and timeless thriller, more earth song too. And fans would eat it up, not out of nostalgia, but reverence. His music would be less about chart-topping hits and more about cultural impact. And in the middle of it all, the fans. The love from the fans would only have grown. New generations discovering him on TikTok, old ones reminiscing about Bad and Dangerous, tributes, documentaries, festivals dedicated to Hymevery era would still claim him as their own. He wouldn't just be remembered on anniversaries, he'd still be present, influencing, inspiring, creating. At 65, Michael Jackson would not be a man living in the shadow of his prime. He would be a creative elder, a pop prophet, an icon proving that greatness doesn't expire. His influence would be felt in music, culture, fashion, tech, and social justice. Because legends like him, they don't just age, they evolve. And the world would have watched, breathlessly, every step of the way.